Now, I'll tell you one story now to give you a sense of how strong the weight was of this kind of status. It's a story that comes up in the novel The Scholars. It's about Fan Jin. And Fan Jin was a poor young scholar who had the dream of passing examinations, was always unsuccessful. And his wife's father, his father-in-law, was a butcher, and he lived with his wife's family. And his father was a nasty cuss. He slapped Fan Jin around. He thought he was a fool. He thought he had no good sense at all. Well, Fan Jin gets the right to go to the provincial capital to take the examinations. And lo and behold, he passes. And when he passes, he's so shocked that he collapses, goes unconscious, falls down on the floor. And the neighbors all think he's going to die. And the neighbors say to his father-in-law, well, slap him a little bit, try to wake him up, get him. And his father said, no, he's now going to be an official. I dare not touch him. He is like one of the stars in heaven who has come to life and been reborn here. This man has now, my son-in-law, who I used to beat up all the time, has now become a man of such great talent, great standard, and great promise that I dare not do anything except be obsequious to him. This was meant to be funny, but it also makes a claim. It makes the claim that examinations allowed for social mobility, that they were more important, in fact, than kinship, that you could transcend your circumstances by passing exams. This idea that the examinations were China's great mechanism for social mobility, that after the end of aristocracy, that the examinations allowed for a sort of a more modern, socially mobile society of upwardly mobile people. We ought to sometimes think about downwardly mobile too, but we'll talk about that another occasion. This idea that it made people at the lower levels of society able to rise to higher levels, the marginal to become central, to go from poverty to wealth, was very, very appealing. But in fact, it's been very sharply criticized. It's been criticized by scholars today who point out that the way in which upward mobility has been measured does not necessarily hold water. In brief, the way in which it's been measured typically is to look at who passes the examinations and then to look at the record of their father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. If none of those people pass the examinations, then we say, aha, that's a new man, new blood coming into the system. That is mobility. Well, when we look more closely at these new men, however, what we tend to discover is that they're deeply embedded in local kinship groups or lineages, that they have relatives who have passed the examinations or hold offices or so on. And in fact, some would even argue that when families establish themselves as local literati elites, beginning in South China in the 12th century, they are remarkably stable, and many of them last from the 12th century into the present day. But if this is so, what did examinations do? Well, if they're not a mechanism of social mobility, what could they be? I think what they might be is, in fact, a mechanism of social rotation. That is, we have existing educated people who are going to school, who are competing for the exams in very large numbers, who come from families where most of the boys are involved in the same kind of education. And what they're trying to do is make sure that those families all have an equal chance to send somebody into government. I'm going to turn you over now to some people who are going to tell you about how the examination system in the Ming and Qing dynasties worked in greater detail. And when they're done, I'd like you to think about what surprised you most about what you heard and why it surprised you.